with self made a shadow, and this shadow started. It was like some water that was like, so basically what we see is what we call matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because this thought started intertwining with the matter, so whatever this great spirit thought and whatever it wanted inside of its imagination started to take form and shape. And that became the universe. So it went out, and as it spread, it went to different levels of matter, different degrees of matter. So that's how you get all this different stuff. All this stuff is just matter. You know what I'm saying? It's all just matter. And then they make it like it's this God watching everything you do. It doesn't have to do that. It's everything. Everything is it. It don't have to watch you. You're part of it. It don't have to be looking over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
The actual life force is the so quote unquote God. It's not separate. It's not hanging out somewhere. It does exist by itself somewhere. It's a life giving source that never runs out. It's always there where it is. I don't have to figure that out. We know it exists because I do.
Mm-hmm.
This is very simple to understand. Life just exists. I exist. So I don't have to sit here and try to worry about going to hell or heaven. No, man. Life is just vibration. And we know that because thought is a vibration. So we know that the Great Spirit, when it thought, that thought was a vibration from itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that vibration created a shadow, what we call matter. Matter started making form out of the imagination and the thought of this Great Spirit. And that thing doesn't make emotional decisions like this God in the Bible and the Quran does. Hate, love, all this stuff you're attributing to this divinity because it's all you can attribute to it because you're a human. You are actual soul trapped into having a human experience. So the only thing you can apply to a God is what you apply to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the Great Spirit, you can't apply none of that stuff to the Great Spirit. It just is. It don't have all of this what you think it has. The way that it thinks and what it's doing and why it did what it did, and it's so beyond your capacity. Because now you got to make up whole institutions to try to explain why there's good and bad in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You try to institutionalize the Great Spirit and make it some institution to study it. I can study without your institution. I can go sit by a tree and watch a tree. I can go in the mirror and look at myself. I can close my eyes and meditate, sit there and just have total darkness on myself, on the world. I can walk on grass. I can let the sunlight touch me and know that the Great Spirit exists. I don't have to life. I can take a deep breath and understand life exists. What is that breath I'm breathing? I don't have to sit here and be scared of no God. Why? This quote unquote God went through all this trouble to create all this beautiful stuff for us to be here comfortable, and then at the end of the day, gonna burn me in hell forever? That don't make sense. I don't know why people think that makes sense to them. If you enjoying the creation of this God, quote unquote, the trees, the water, you being nice to your family, nice to nature, you being nice to people around you. But if you die not believing in some ideology out of all the thousands of other ideologies that man is fighting over, and I'm going to go to hell because I ain't choose one of them, we got to make this make sense logically to ourselves as people. Period. To me, you got to make this, take your emotions, use your logic. Logically thinking, you telling me if this one says Jehovah, this one says Allah, this one says Jesus, only one of them going to heaven? The other two not, because why? Because their concept of an already corrupt concept about what a God is, y'all fighting over it? And it's stuff that predate all three of y'all belief systems? That's in total opposition to what y'all saying. It just ain't adding up, man. We just got to use our logic. It's not adding up. It's not adding up. Why would this great spirit, this great divine source want me to be afraid? As a parent, I want my children to be better than me. I want them to reach my level. I want them to reach the highest levels they can get. I want them to know that they can reach higher levels than me, even if they can. I want them to believe that, though. Why would God want me to be a slave? A father, he should want me, quote unquote, to try to reach the highest levels possible without fear, guilt, and shame. This is not teaching me. I don't have a choice in the matter. If I don't obey you, I'm going to hell. You're not teaching me to choose. You're not teaching me to learn my mistakes. The mistake is not obeying you. That's not a parent. This is a dictator. But when you understand the Great Spirit, understand your indigenous culture, you understand it's not it's not about being a dictator over you. It's about really giving you free will of a choice. And whatever you choose, that path has been created already. Everything is in the mind of the all. Everything is in the mind of the Great Spirit. That's all this stuff is the mind of the Great Spirit. Some great creator, this is in his mind. This stuff was a thought. He didn't have to move his hands and do all of that to make none of this. This ain't nothing. This was an imagination of a great being. Period.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. So what to you is the Great Spirit?
The Great Spirit is every single thing that's alive. It's from the imagination of the Great Spirit. But the Great Spirit exists alone. It is existence. It's the only thing that is real. It's permanent. It doesn't change. It doesn't have fear, guilt, shame. It's not afraid ever. It doesn't have to move. It thought everything into existence. So everything, by that definition, is a part of it, is a degree of it. But the things except that we see are not the Great Spirit, but its existence because of the Great Spirit.
Do you think that it's
or Padnathoru?
Do you think that its essence is feminine or masculine in nature, or no, or is that more so Mother Earth? We call Mudita.
My personal opinion, I think that the Great Spirit doesn't have a sex how we understand it. But I am going to say that everything is in degrees. But I am going to say that I think that because sex exists on every plane or every level, it has to be some type of masculine and feminine combination to create life. So I think that both those energies are originally with the Great Spirit. And we know that because when everything got thought into existence, it came out in this plurality. You have to have both to create life. I think in essence, this thought and this understanding of what that is comes within the Great Spirit itself. I think that because it gave life from within itself, that because of that, I will apply the divine or femininity to that. But at the same time, you can't have one without the other. So that's something that, you know what I mean? I don't know how deep I can go into that, but I think that itself doesn't need that type of quality. But I know that both those qualities have to exist on some level, on some degree, with the Great Spirit. You know what I mean? And I think Mother, the earth, everything else, life, it's stuff we see, everything's feminine. It has to be. It's giving life. So because of that, you name it that. The sun is always feminine. The lands are always feminine. Cities are always, anything where life is bustling and life is being given, you apply femininity to it. That's our culture on the planet.
That's
Period.
so interesting, yeah.
That's our culture on the planet. But religion says women are less than men. It goes against the very nature of a human being.
That's so interesting, too, because you have states, Oklahoma.
All of it.
You know, Dakota. But
All
when
of
you
it.
get to New York, it's New York.
All of it.
Boston.
But even they apply her
Yeah.
to cars, anything like that, a woman's name is applied to, or some type of feminine attachment is applied to it. Because that's deep down inside we understand. Why would I think something that I've never met before, and the only thing that's ever groomed me in life was my mother? You came out your womb, you saw your mother, the first heartbeat you heard, the first brush you put your mouth in, changed your diaper, bathed you, raised you, clothed you, fed you, but do you want to turn around and think something you never saw? Thinking your mother is thinking the Great Spirit because your mother is the Great Spirit. She got to be part of the Great Spirit. She wouldn't exist if she wasn't. There's no way to get around being a part of quote unquote God because everything has to be God.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't exist if it wasn't. The problem with religion is separates you from God.
Mm-hmm.
It says that you're a slave and bad and God is way off somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Watching you go to the bathroom, watching you pee, have sex, drink.
That's so interesting too, how religion assigns this male dominant energy to these deities.
Yeah, because
almost all of them.
Patriarchal religions are based upon Enlil. Enlil, the brother of Enki, who was a quote unquote Anunnaki, quote unquote fallen god who came to this earth. Every single ancient culture talks about the coming of invaders from the skies or out of portals, either befriending a nation or fighting a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Either you made them gods or they were devils to you. That's across the globe. Religious people might not accept that. They might say that's weird, but you believe in a man flying on a horse and a man fed people with bread and fish. So, laughing at these ancient civilizations, you believe a man pointed at the moon and it split. You believe in, all types of crazy stuff. Somebody came alive and out of a grave and after 3 days went to hell and came back after 3 days. You believe all of that, but you don't believe that other dimensions and other places exist with life, and those lives may have been more advanced than some of the life that was here, and they came here and acted as guides to the people they went to.
Mm.
You believe in a burning bush? Yeah. I don't know. And this stuff is hundreds of thousands of years older than any of your books you got in your hand that somebody wrote and published and print in a paper. This stuff was written on stone. It's all in museums. It's underground. It's written on pyramids in America, all over the world. So these people just made this story up and just passed it along across the whole globe, huh? Mm-hmm. Every ancient civilization took the time out to carve these stories, and they ain't meet these things. So when they showing us our ancestors in America with shields fighting reptilians, they just did that because they ain't had nothing to do that day. No, they was actually writing down what was going on. Mm-hmm. So a major event happened, and they made sure that it got remembered. Mm-hmm. Just like everybody else do. July 4th, you go overseas, the Middle East got days like that. You commemorate them so nobody forgets they happened. Mm-hmm. The same thing our ancestors did. But because they're not Muslims or Christians or Jews, their stories are just mythology. Mm-hmm. But a man on a flying horse ain't a mythology, though. Even though I can find that same story in the Middle East before Islam in Persia, with a Persian religion, the Zoroastrian says there was a man who flew on a horse from one city to the next for his god called Ahura Mazda. The same story of Muhammad leaving Mecca and going to Jerusalem for his god Allah. 1,000 years before Muhammad's story.
Sounds similar to Moshe or Moses. Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying, to believe, not believe, the point of the matter is that these stuff happened on this planet. You can believe in all the stories these people done told you. Once the patriarchal energy took over, the god Enlil, which they call El in the Bible, Elohim, they call him Allah, all these different L's and L's, just go back to Enlil. And that patriarchal energy took over the planet, and its time is coming to an end. So when it took over, it made everything masculine. It made everything patriarchal. And the old matriarchal system was pushed under the rug and conquered. This is why every time they talk about the great mother or the mother energy, it's always a demon. It's always dark. But the patriarchal gods are lightning and bright. Because this system took over the planet. And from that control mechanism, we have the Vatican, we have the Islam, we have the church, and all that other stuff is the front and the face of the theological control, historical control. Once they took over, you change the history lines, you do mud floods, you destroy pyramids, you hide things, you change the history. And it's exactly what they did. Because now history is based on religious history. It's what the church established as history. It's what Islam has established as history. It's what Judaism has established as history. But what about the world's history? You ever notice that when they tell you this is always based on Rome?
Mm-hmm.
What about before Rome? What about when Rome was melanated and dark skinned? But what was going on in America?
Mm-hmm.
Millions of years before Mecca existed. Millions of years. You ever notice they only tell you about the little strip of desert over there and they make the whole world revolve around that? You look at biblical history, Quranic history, they talk about parts of Southern Europe, the Middle East, North Africa. And the whole world is supposed to now submit to those bloodlines in their history and their story. But what about my story? I existed, my bloodline existed in America before there was a Mecca. There was no Arabs. What about Kemet over there? Kemet was the power over that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even hear about Kemet.
That's so true.
We're talking about Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Kemet was at its peak.
Mm-hmm.
Tens of thousands of years before there was a such thing called an Arab. And guess what was going on in America? The same thing that was going on in Kemet. Science and spirituality. And civilization building. Right here in America. So the Quran or the Bible don't mention nothing about these civilizations.
Mm.
Why is that?
That's so weird.
This is the oldest civilization on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest pyramids, got more pyramids in America than Africa. Now we finding out through research and technology that, man, this stuff here is so old. One of the guys in Smithsonian said that some of this stuff is 63 million. Some of these structures and cities they found, he dated them to be 60-something years old. Now, you ain't got to believe it's dating. You can say, oh, carbon dating, I don't agree all the way with it. It can be mistakes. And I agree. But what I'm saying, for somebody to say that about America,
mm-hmm.
and that it was black people, quote unquote, that did this, all I'm saying is, I can't go along with the history y'all giving me. It's too short. Mm-hmm. It's only in one little part of the world. Then you tell me, only thing you mention in these books, oh, and look at the past nation. Look at the ancient nations that were destroyed. Mm-hmm. You never tell me what these ancient nations are. And the only nations that you tell me about in your books is the ones around you, because that's all you can tell me about. That's why you don't tell me about the other ones. That's why I don't hear about ancient China in the Bible and the Quran. That's why I don't hear about ancient America, because you can't tell me about it, because you lived in a desert. That's why. That's why we don't hear about it. You lived in a desert. Of course you ain't know nothing about what was going on in America and what's going on in China and Australia and these places. People had people on it. Mm-hmm. They had people on it. So when they was going to hear about Muhammad's call in Australia, when they was going to hear about it, how they was going to hear it, how was our ancestors, Mesoamericans, was going to hear about it? How about the brothers and sisters from Maine on down to the southeast of America, mound builders in Louisiana and Mississippi and all that? How they was going to hear about it? With they mega cities, and you think they knew what was going on in the middle of nowhere in the desert? They sure didn't. That made no noise where they was from. It was nobody knew nothing about no Muhammad and what was going on in the desert or Moses and all that over here. Because it wasn't important to them. They was over here fighting over that. They was over here fighting over the idols and that clan stuff. We weren't fighting over that. We was scientists and builders. We wasn't in the middle of the desert, running through there with swords, cutting each other's head off in the name of gods and stuff. Who wasn't living like that? Let's keep this 100, man. The brothers in Kemet wasn't living like that. Brothers in Nuba wasn't living like that. But religion want to call them pagans. You want to call them savages. But every time I look at your history, I see savagery. I look at mine, I see scientists, builders, mathematicians, astrologers. I see pyramids still standing today. Only thing you got still standing today is a cube in the middle of Mecca, some black cube. It's not even black, got a drape on it. It's really just bricks.
What?
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, but my ancestors got stuff that's still standing. We built 1 million mounds and pyramids in America. Unfortunately, through colonization, they destroyed most of them. Only a few 100,000 that we know of still standing there. But all I'm saying is, though, guess what? They still be standing today. Y'all ain't got nothing that's still standing. Stuff that's 500 years old, man, that's a drop in the bucket. We got mounds older than that. We got to take some pride, but we got pride in everybody else's stuff. You can't tell me how your ancestors did rituals, but we're going all the way to Mecca to dress in cloth and tiles, to walk around a cube that we have no idea the origin of, except for what they told us in their book.
But they want you to think the ancestors' rituals were evil.
But that's evil because the reality of that, they've been doing that. That's Metatron's cube. They've been doing that. I got a book in Arabic that explains the whole history of that area. Walking around that cube like that generates energy. That was the ritual they did to generate energy for this god Mercury. And that's how they sent the energy out like that. It's soul harvesting, really. They still doing the same thing today. But they just put now instead of being Mercury, it's Allah.
When they did it then, they were naked walking around.
They were naked walking around.
Doing things.
Yeah. They ain't naked now, and then they got on some cloth and some, you know what I mean? And a towel or something. It's still the same ritual though. And guess what? They used to throw stones at Mercury. Then they throw the stones at the devil. It's the same ritual. You can try to clean it up. It's monotheism now. It's the same ritual. The same energy, the same. I can call alcohol wine. I can say wine and spirits. It's still alcohol. It's still alcohol though. But nobody want to talk about that. It's whole ancient civilizations over there that nobody want to talk about right there in Jordan, places in the Middle East, advanced civilizations. Why we not talking? Why we don't get to study that? Why y'all don't get to study that? Because it will blow a hole in religion. It'll blow a hole in the so-called evolutionary theory out of Africa. It'll kill it. It'll tell the real origins of man. Who's really Adam? And Adam wasn't the first people on the planet. It'll explain all of that. But you'll throw that away and say, oh man, that's just phooey. And the only reason you do that because you've been indoctrinated to believe there's some God somewhere that's telling you, no, that's garbage. I destroyed that. No, yeah, that God did do that. But it wasn't because he was divine. It was a war on the planet. And your God was one of the ones behind it. And at the end of the day, when all this truth come out, don't say I ain't warn you. There's no God somewhere putting people in hell forever. That type of mindset don't exist in no God. Some real divine being don't care about that type of stuff. Why would he want to burn you forever? Y'all, come on. You know how vast the universe is? How much life exists in it? So who else going to hell? I'm going to be in there with a green-eyed monster too. I'm going to be in there with a Chewbacca. I'm going to be in there. Like, who else going to hell? You telling me out of whole this vast universe, only humans is the ones that's getting judged? So who else we seen on the day of judgment? Guido, remember the Lord, the gangster on Star Wars, the big eyes, he was green. The one was playing the flute. I'm like, who else we gonna see here?
Oh, you know what's so weird though? That some Christians in some circles say God of the universe.
Mm.
That's not the only. There's a multiverse. So you agree that your God is the God of this universe then? Like, do you know what you're saying when you say that? You know?
The problem is when you think that God is your friend, and he's not. He's the actual jailer. He's the warden. He trapped you here. You know what I'm saying? But he tricked you into believing that he's the overlord. And then all you gotta do is treat people like you treat Scooby. Hey Raggy, you want a Scooby snack? You throw it up in the air and they don't catch it right, you hit them with the newspaper. So they keep on trying to please you, don't get hit with the newspaper. It's simple. What this guy really put down is real simple. But he did it so complex that you don't see the simplicity in it. I ain't beat. I know exactly who this God is. It ain't somebody to be scared of. It ain't somebody. It's people playing games. It's games being played. And that's all this really is. Free your mind. Free yourself from this stuff. What God, something that created this vast multiverse, this vast life, why does he care how you pray? That's not a God. That's somebody that's a narcissist. That's somebody that's so articulate and wants so much control, that's willing to be that vast. And I'm like a speck of dust to him, but he worrying about how I go to the bathroom? Come on, y'all. What I'm saying is sometimes you don't even have to have no theological conversation. Sometimes you just got to have a real logical one.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do that? For what? Why does he care? So you telling me you got so when I get in heaven, all of a sudden I got all the women now, the wine,
and the beautiful
the little boys come serving me wine. I don't want no little boy serving me nothing right now. I don't want no little boy walking up on me serving me nothing. Don't come up on me. Some little he supposed to be pretty as a pearl that's inside of a clam or whatever. Little boy come up looking all. I don't want no little boy around me like that. Come out with a drink. Hey sir, I must want to push that little boy. You don't get out of here. That don't feel comfortable to me right now. Like all of a sudden now I'm in heaven and I got this so little boys can serve me drinks. We don't. And now I can hit a girl and she go back to being a virgin and
that's the Islamic beliefs.
Right? Yeah, I go back and hit a virgin and drink wine up there.
And she turned back into a virgin.
Turn back to being a virgin. You got some people got 72 wives and she's so beautiful you can see through her. And I mean, we fall for it, but I can't believe my oral traditions are my people.
Real actual people.
Actual people that I can go read and learn it in the language and I'm hearing it firsthand and I'm tracing it back. I'm learning my genealogy. And I'm like, oh, these people, oh, wow. Not some foreign fairy tale that somebody told me that happened. I can go to the mounds and places here and see what happened. I can try to piece together the history in some museums and oral traditions. That's somebody else's story that somebody else told me. What about my story? What happened to my people? And when I'm telling y'all I can learn that and be proud of that, something wrong with me. You call me a tree hugger. That's instead of just saying, wow, the brothers is happy. That's why I know religion ain't about spirituality. It's about control.
Mm-hmm.
You take it personal that somebody left Islam. That's a problem with you. I don't take it personal that you Muslim. I take theology of all religions personal because I know the origin of it and I know the problems it caused on my people. I see it every day. I was one of the problems that caused it on my people. So at the end of the day, that's all I'm saying. But the people, man, they not willing to wake up because I know it's scary to see the truth. I know it's scary because you've been trained. Islam ain't why you trained. You was trained in the church coming up to believe in this God. Islam ain't nothing but a somewhat more ordered version of the church. That's all it is. They tweaked it a little to fit their culture and their understanding. They gave you a different version of the same garbage they gave your grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they did. You want to get away from what your grandparents believe. It's the same damn stories. You believe the same thing as your grandparents. Heaven, hell, do right, don't do wrong. God watch you do everything. The only thing you don't do different on, they say God is 3 in 1 or a son or whatever, and you don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it. You got farther away from, as Islam, you got farther away from the older teachings of the ancients about the spirituality of the Trinity and what the Trinity is. The church came before Islam, so it still was a little bit closer to that original science. So they took that science and made it theology and placed morality on it. The first one to do it was the Jews when they came out of Babylon. They came out of there, and with the stories of Sumeria, the Anunnaki stories, where they get the flood from, the creation story from, the Adam and Eve story from, all them biblical stories in the Old Testament, all that stuff come from, especially Genesis. All of it come from the Sumerian tablets. They came out of there, they applied morality from Enlil. They applied morality to the stories, switched characters out, made it their own story, created a religion around it. Every other religion that we have today that we see practiced in the hood stems from that decision right there. Because every other story that came out of that is another version of the already watered down version that came out of Sumeria. You can hate me, love me, whatever. That's where it comes from. So that's what your religions are based on. Every last one. You can look at the symbolisms in religion, all the symbolism. We did a video on it. Look at all the symbolisms. Go to Babylon and Sumer, Mesopotamia. Look at all them symbolisms of the Anunnaki, and then come look at the symbolisms in your religion and tell me they're not the same.
All in one place.
All in one place. In the Middle East. And all your religions stem from the Middle East.
Yep.
Because they stem from that. Because all those languages over there stem from cuneiform. And then Sumeria, then Babylon, then Akkadian, then Hebrew. Right? Which all of them come what? Aramaic is the older version. So Aramaic and cuneiform are the two oldest ones on the planet. That's why the Native American over here, our indigenous ancestors, we spoke a form of Aramaic. A Paleo-Hebrew. It sounds like it's close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody spoke a version of that. That's how we was able to communicate.
Yep.
So, but Arabic came after all of that. So that's why that's why you look at Islam and Arabic and all that. You can find them same words in ancient Sumeria, them same words, but a different meaning in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
God in Arabic means a divinity, but that same word in Sumeria just mean lofty one.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody high up. It don't necessarily mean divine, but it can mean that.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying is all them words have root words. Many of the words in the Quran are Persian. Many of them, or Hebrew. They Arabicized them for the story. So all I'm saying, all them stories the same to me. But there's older versions of those stories. And when I saw that, I was like, all right, well, people can look for themselves, make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it's too close to me. For me, I'm cool.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't worshiping nothing. Why do I gotta worship? Why would something as great as the Great Spirit, the All, the one that thought everything to existence, this great being that because of its imagination, everything exists.
Mm-hmm.
For what reason would it want me to be scared of it? For what? What does it have?
Doesn't make sense.
I'm saying, what does it need within itself for me to be afraid?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does it need within itself for me to pray to it? Now you telling me that the Great Spirit is in need of something. But you lie to me and say, no, I don't need it. God doesn't need it. You need to. That's why he put it there for you.
Mm-hmm.
No, he made me need it. He could have created me without needing to pray. He could have never mentioned prayer to me. He could have put within us the ability to raise our consciousness and to know about being conscious and put us in a paradise planet and let his creation grow and multiply. And every once in a while, quote unquote, assist us in our journey and let us make our own decision, our own. But he didn't do that. He created us without our permission and put us in a life without our permission and gave us a life without our permission. And if we make mistakes in our life that he created and decreed for us without our permission, now he's going to punish us for something he did and rolled out and planned out without our permission in the first place. It don't make sense logically to me. Why did this great being that thought everything to existence, why does it need me to be scared? Why does it have to threaten me? What does it need within itself to feel that type of power? It's already everything.
Right. So what is it threatened by? Is it something you could do to him?
That's what I'm saying. The story itself tell you that in their own book. He got mad when they ate the fruit. He hid the fruit from him because the fruit was knowledge. It made him aware. It made him conscious. According to you, he didn't want that. He didn't want me to be able to make no choice. He didn't want me to be able to see and make decisions on my own. He wanted me to be a baby. But the so-called devil was the one like, nah, he trying to play y'all. But guess where they get that story from? Sumerian tablets. Enki took them to a garden of it's called Eden, Edin in the Sumerian tablets. His name was Adam, and her name was Tiamat. And they was living in a garden, and she actually was the one that was more intelligent. She actually one that built like some furniture and stuff like that in the story. And the serpent came to her, quote unquote, yada, yada, yada. But according to this story, the serpent was his brother Enki. Enki was the one teaching him wisdom, little science, little understanding of this, that.
You're talking about the writings on the Sumerian
The writing
tablets.
on the Sumerian tablets. And in these Sumerian tablets, when they learned how to have sex, because they couldn't procreate at first, but Enki put that in the story, the bone, he took a some type of DNA or some type of genetic from his bone, from his rib cage. It was some type of life essence. And they added that with one of, I think, a DNA from one of their women. And that was able to, they put it in Eve. And that was able to, so she could have a child. They both had the ability now to give her life and her to take the life and procreate it, whatever, like women do. At that time, they did that. So Enlil found out because he wanted to control the birth thing, control the population. Same plot they do now, populate the population, keep it in control and depopulate the world. Same plan as they got. He found out, got upset, threw them out the garden. Adam and Tiamat out the garden, and was mad at his brother and had his brother arrested. Basically called him a serpent, yada, yada, yada. The story goes into the end. They went in front of the other Anunnaki gods, quote unquote, judges. And at the end of the day, Enki didn't go to jail, whatever. Him and his brother, they didn't like each other.
And this is the same story as depicted on the Sumerian tablets, which predate the Bible and the Quran.
By millennia. I don't even know how long. Millennia, though. Tens of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. And that's how the Jewish people came in contact with that story when they was in captivity in Babylon. That's how they came in captivity. That's how they did it.